name's Tony Sirna, and I'm from Dancing Rabbit Ecovillage. And Dancing Rabbit actually started in the Bay Area. We were a group of students living in a cooperative at Stanford University, and in 1993, so just over, it's almost 21 years now, we had our first presentation at Earth Day at Stanford, and that was an amazing experience of just connecting with people and getting this idea off the ground of trying to create a fully sustainable town based on just this notion that if we could create an example of what sustainable living really was, that could inspire people to make change and inspire the world towards sustainable living. And so we actually lived in Berkeley for a year or two while we put together our plans, our vision, our process, gathered the people together, and we really wanted to do it in California, but the zoning and the building codes and the price of land really prevented us from doing the experiment that we wanted to do. Because what we are doing is really an experiment. It's trying to figure out what it really looks like to live sustainably, because it's been a long time since humans were living sustainably, or maybe never. So we ended up in Missouri. Dancing Rabbit owns 280 acres of land in northeast Missouri, and on that land we're doing a bunch of different things. We're restoring prairie grasses, we're planting trees. We've planted over 13,000 trees to restore the habitat to its original ecosystem. But the really interesting thing that we're doing is building a village, and so we started with a group of 6 people, and we now have 70 or 75 people living in our community. We've built around 30 homes, generally natural building techniques, and here's a satellite image of that village. Now, our long-term goal is to actually be a village of 500, and so this is sort of the artist's rendition of what that village could look like at some point. It's still a long journey, and we're excited about that process. We've been growing pretty quickly lately at 10 or 15% per year, so we're hoping that we're going to see this in our lifetime, but it is a life's work to try and create a sustainable village. Diana Christian, who is author of a couple books on community, says that Dancing Rabbit may be the most ecologically rigorous community in the country, and we've really tried to push the envelope on what it really means to live sustainably. There's a lot of different ways to interpret that. There's a lot of different ways to interpret what eco-village means, but sometimes people will use the term orthodox eco-village in the sense of we're taking really seriously the word eco and really seriously the word village. So we're talking, we're clustering our housing, we're building a village-sized community, and we're really trying to look at what does it mean to live in a fully sustainable way. This was the first home that we built at Dancing Rabbit. It's a straw bale home, and when we built that building, we had read one book called Build It with Bales, and we had a copy of it in our hands, and we actually had 2 copies because the first one was so dirty from being built with that we had to replace it. But so we were a bunch of, we were in our mid-20s. We didn't have a lot of construction experience at all, but we decided we can do this. There's a book, it must be possible. We built this home. We still live in it today. It's my partner's home, and we do a lot of natural building. This is a cob building, so a lot of straw bale, a lot of cob, a lot of natural plasters, earthen floors. Basically learning to build with the materials that are at hand, that are available resources. The clay comes right out of the ground, the straw comes from our neighbors' fields. Building housing out of the indigenous materials that are present. And you can get some very beautiful things with natural building. You're basically sculpting your home and laying your hands on every surface of the house that you're going to be living in. It's a really magical experience. And so this is a cob home with an earthen roof, with you can see the mosaics, and there's just a lot of really human touches that go into our housing. And we try to design our village to be pedestrian scale, to be human scale. So we do not allow vehicles into our village unless for deliveries and emergencies, but on a day-to-day basis it's all walking and biking within our village. And so everything is built around humans. It's not built around cars. It's not streets that are so wide that you can't even talk to your neighbors across the road when they're on their porch course, no one even hangs out on their porch anymore in America because everyone's got air conditioning inside, and you can drive your car all the way into your home, so why would you even interact with your neighbors? So, where we live, the architecture, the design, the principles of the village actually encourage community. They encourage connection. They encourage, that you meet people on the path, and you do look as you pass them and say, what are they doing to be themselves that day? And so this is the courtyard in our community that's sort of like the epicenter of things. All the paths lead through here. The common house is on the right in the orange building. That's Sky House, which is my home. It's a 6-bedroom home that's a cooperative house where I live with a number of other people, and we share a kitchen. It's the vegan cooperative. We do eat gluten. So one of our covenants at Dancing Rabbit is that all of our energy has to come from renewable sources. And so for 15 years we were actually off the grid. We connected to the grid a couple of years ago so that we could export power. We discovered that during the summer we often had surplus power, and I really got tired of that just being wasted. And so by doing a net metering agreement, we're able to export power when we have surplus. We do import power at night and on cloudy days, but we've made a commitment as a community to export twice as much electricity as we import. So we're trying to mitigate any of the negative effects that we have by using the broader infrastructure. And our long-term goal is actually to have a standalone microgrid again and be able to provide all of our power renewably from on-site. And part of the way that we do that is by reducing our use of power. It's really sexy to show solar panels and wind turbines and talk about biodiesel and all the alternative technologies. But the truth is, from my point of view at least, the way that we're really going to achieve sustainability is by reducing our impact first and then replacing with alternative methods. So we've reduced our electricity by 90% compared to the average American, and that's just by conservation, by just being really committed to using the most efficient appliances in the most efficient ways, and to designing our homes so that they don't require a lot of electricity to exist. When it comes to transportation, I mentioned, within the village it's all biking and walking, but we do have to get to town. We live in a rural area, so there's, aside from our community, there are not, the resources that we need to get to are a little farther away. So we have a car co-op. We share 4 cars among 75 people, and we drive about 75 miles per person per month. And so again, that's about 90% less than the average American. We have 3 passenger cars and a truck. One of the cars is an electric Nissan Leaf, and we use that for all of our short trips, but it doesn't have the range to actually get to some of the towns we need to get to. So we have the rest of the vehicles are all diesel and run on biodiesel whenever we can. Our goal is to be completely petroleum free. We're not there yet because in the Missouri winters you can't run biodiesel without it turning into a gelatinous thing that doesn't really flow through your engine. So we have problems with that. But so yeah, we reduced our car usage a lot, and then we replace it with the alternative technologies of electric, of biodiesel. If we do this, if our country can do this, if we reduce our usage by 90%, then there actually is the renewable energy and the biofuels to meet our transportation needs. So when people say it's not possible, they mean it's not possible to just drop it in and replace our existing non-sustainable use levels. We do a lot with water as well. Water is the key to life, and so we do a lot of rainwater collection. A lot of our buildings have metal roofs specifically so that we can collect water off of them. I'd say we get about 60 to 70% of our water from rainwater collection. We use it for all of our domestic uses, including drinking water. It runs through various filters to be cleaned in that way. And then once we've used that water, it is treated in natural systems. So this is a gray water treatment system. It's basically a constructed wetland where there's wetland plants that are, the microbes and the plants magically treat the water until it's ready to be released into the environment or used to irrigate our gardens.
Could you talk a little bit about how the larger buildings are made? Like that, is that a cog building?
So that's a straw bale building. It's a 2-story building with a wooden frame made from all the lumber and that we use in our construction is reclaimed or locally harvested. So it's reclaimed timbers, and so it's got a 2-story wooden frame, and then the walls are infilled with straw bale, and they're plastered on the inside with an earthen plaster and on the outside with a lime plaster. So again, part of how we do that, meeting our water needs through rainwater catchment, is by reducing our water usage. And so we use about 12 gallons per person per day. The average American uses 135 gallons. And so we do that primarily composting toilets, all dry toilets at Dancing Rabbit. We have various models of composting toilets and human manure systems. Very efficient systems in terms of faucets and low flow things, and then just preventing leaks. It's amazing. I think I read a third of the water that we use in our houses is actually leaked into the plumbing leaks. And so you don't let that happen when you have a cistern and you're catching all your water off your roof. You make sure that that's not really a possibility.
Do you shower?
Yes, we do.
Oh, cool.
We do. As often as people like, which varies quite a bit. We also do have a pond that people swim in the summer, and we have a lot of outdoor solar showers. And so, we are, one of the interesting things about Dancing Rabbit is that there's a lot of diversity there in how people express what sustainable living means. And so it is a mixture of, hand tools and, sculpting your home out of mud and living in a mud hut, and then you have the internet and you have your laptop, and people express what sustainable living means differently. But I'd say in general, we live a recognizably middle-class American life on 10% of the resources that the average American uses, and feeling abundant about that. So we grow a lot of our own food. We don't grow all of our own food. We'd love to get all of our food locally someday. We're not expecting to grow it all on our land because we want to be integrated into the wider surrounding economy. And so we grow a lot of our vegetables. We preserve them for the winter. We have a hoop house where we can grow throughout the winter. We wildcraft. We produce shiitake mushrooms and other mushrooms that we inoculate into some of the logs from our woodland. Here's the canned goods for my co-op from a few years ago, and so this is a winter's harvest that's been put up in various ways. Dehydrating, freezing, fermenting, canning, root cellaring, and all of those different techniques that our grandparents and great-grandparents all took. That's what they did to survive the winter, and so we're doing those same things. We're taking those old technologies and blending them with new technologies and importing them from different cultures, and so. It's really exciting to really have that connection with your own food, to know where it came from and to have processed it all and have it there for the winter. We have, as well as growing our own food, catching our own water, making our own power, we also have created our own currency. And so our economics within the village are multi-leveled. We have a gift economy where we just do that stuff for our neighbors because we care and because we know that they'll support us when we need to. We have a barter economy where people share goods between each other, extra tomatoes for your extra squash or whatever it might be. And we have an alternative currency where we, instead of using US dollars to trade within the village, we have ELMS, which are the exchange local money system. And so there's an online system, there's paper money if you want to use it, but everyone uses the online system because that's how things work in our village, I guess. So we have over 100,000 ELMS in circulation, and what that really does for us is that takes that money out of the banking system and puts it into our own community hands, where we can loan it to our institutions at 0% interest and based on the values that we have. And so we loaned money to our car co-op to buy the electric car, and we're going to loan money to our land trust to create a wastewater treatment system. And we do that based on just the collective resources of our community. By keeping that money in the alternative currency, it's keeping it in our banking system rather than the mainstream banking system. This is the roof on that Cobb building, and it's a pretty interesting building technology where you build a roof by, you put in a temporary post, and you put the first rafter sits on that post, and the second rafter sits on the first, and the third on the second, until it's a spiral all the way around. You can tuck the last rafter under the first, and you can remove that post, and the magic of physics means that it supports itself.
Wow. And
that those rafters individually, which would not support themselves, collectively create a roof, create more than they could on their own. And it's called a reciprocal roof, and it's a really fascinating technique. It was really exciting to build it. And for me, it's a real metaphor for community. By sharing, by cooperating, by supporting each other, we can do so much more than we can do on our own. And so Dancing Rabbit is an experiment where we're using those various technologies of water catchment and natural building, but it's also an experiment, a social experiment, where we're learning how do we get along with each other while we share those things? How do we live close enough together that we can share all these resources, but do that in a way that we still like each other, and can get along? And so we use consensus to make decisions. We just recently elected a village council for the first time. We're making a shift so that we can expand our village and scale up to the next level. But our village council makes decisions by consensus. We do a lot of work with nonviolent communication, restorative justice circles, a whole array of techniques for communicating positively with each other and cooperating and sharing. We do a lot of things for fun. We have dances. We have our own blues band that plays at our blues dance event, and we have contra dances, and we play frisbee, and we go ice skating in the winter and play hockey and go cross country skiing. So we do a lot of different things for fun. So it's not all just focused on growing food and producing power. So I mentioned that we were growing, and this is our new community center. It's not built yet. This is the computer-generated model. Again, I wish it was so easy to build a building. It would be done by now. But so as our village expands, we're 75 now. I mentioned how fast we were growing. We might be double the size in 5 to 7 years. And so we're planning a community center that will provide that infrastructure so that we have a common space where we can all gather for events and meetings and parties, and where we can come together for our twice weekly potlucks, and where we can provide our educational facilities. We have a number of programs for visitors and interns and work exchangers and workshops. And so this will house our nonprofit office and meeting spaces and our sustainability library, as well as bathing and dining facilities for new members and residents, as well as people there for workshops. And so we're also aiming for the highest level of green building certification that's available. So not only LEED Platinum, but also the Living Building Challenge, which is a much stricter standard. And there's only 4 buildings in the world that have been certified by the Living Building Challenge, and we're hoping that ours can be the 5th, or at least in the first few. Some others might beat us to it at the pace we're going so far. But so we're hoping to break ground on this this summer, and we're still in the process of finishing the design and gathering funding for the project.
You can contribute.
And again, you're sticking to your standard of recycle stuff?
Yep. So there'll be straw bales on the inside, and it's a hybrid wall technique. So there'll be a stick frame as well as a straw bale, and then reclaimed wood for the siding. And it will be a hybrid of green building and natural building, and trying to marry the best of those different techniques, which sometimes seem like they're at odds. Like green building sometimes means lots of styrofoam, and natural building sometimes means eco-groovy materials, but not necessarily the most efficient performance afterwards. And so we're trying to actually aim for passive house level performance with a high level of airtight, high insulation, really low energy usage for heating and cooling, while also doing that with natural materials. And so it's a challenge for us, but we're aiming for that. The building has a breezeway. This is the first building that goes to what will eventually be the village green. So I showed that courtyard earlier. There'll be a larger version of that for our village when it reaches that size of 500, and this will be the first building on that village green. And so it's got a breezeway where you can walk through from where the existing village is to where the future village will expand around it. So hopefully this will serve us for the very long term. And here's the great room where we'll hold meetings and events, and passive solar design, reclaimed timbers to do the timber framing, really wanting to demonstrate the vernacular architecture and building techniques that were the standard in the Midwest before industrialization. So using the mortise and tenon techniques to do timber framing. So I mentioned workshops. We do an Ecovillage education, Ecovillage design course that's part of the Global Ecovillage Network's Gaia education process. We do that each summer. It's a 5-week course, and we encourage folks to come and attend. It's like an in-depth immersion into how to create an ecovillage, or how to transform your community wherever you might be into an ecovillage. Because as Amanda said, we don't really expect that everyone in the world is going to move to ecovillages, but we do want to see ecovillages be everywhere in one way or another. We don't pretend that Dancing Rabbit is the only way to live sustainably. It's just one way, and we're trying to use that as an inspiration and a platform for creating change. wherever. So we're inviting you and everyone to take those lessons and apply them in your neighborhoods and in your towns and cities. We have internships, so if you want to come for the summer and learn about natural building or gardening, you can come for 1 to 6 months. This is Sharon and Dennis hosting Hannah and Letty for their Straw Bale internship this summer. And everything that we're doing is stuff that can be done in the city. So just very quickly, this is Detroit, critical mass. You can do biking even in the Motor City. Public transportation, electrified, city car share, other car sharing programs. We need to figure out ways to share cars so we can, limit the impact that they have and free up more of the road space that we have into being available for humans to exist in. Urban agriculture, urban gardening, doing deep energy retrofits on the buildings that we already have, taking the existing building stock and turning them into super efficient housing. In the cities, we don't necessarily need to build new. We need to take what's there and really transform it. And of course, renewable energy. I mean, here in California, you see a lot of it, but you can provide. Every city could provide for its energy needs just on its rooftops if they did the things that it takes to reduce their usage in the first place. And reclaiming community. Everyone loves pictures of LA Ecovillage because they do such awesome things. And so this is like going out and taking the parking spaces and saying, this is our public space. We're going to create community here. We're going to have a party in the street, and the neighbors are going to come over and see what's going on, and you've now created community with the people in your neighborhood. So we see that sharing and cooperation is really the secret ingredient in sustainability. And so wherever you are, whatever your techniques are, it's not just about transforming your own life and putting solar panels on your roof and reducing your footprint. It's about doing that and creating, doing that within your community and helping your neighbors reduce their impact and creating a more abundant life for all of us throughout America and throughout the world. So thanks for your time.